Did you know that there's 7 big mistakes that all people in the fitness world make? And I'm here to tell you exactly what they are and why you shouldn't do them, and one thing that you could do or should do instead. My name is Yogi Aaron, and I'm the owner of Blue Ocean Yoga Retreat and Spa in Costa Rica. I'm also the owner of the Yogi Club, and I am on a mission to tell people to stop stretching and start activating. What we want to do is improve the muscle's ability to contract and contract on demand. Movement in the body doesn't happen because a muscle's ability to lengthen. It really happens because a muscle's ability to shorten. And unfortunately, in both the yoga world and fitness world, we have been taught or misinformed that we need to stretch. And so a lot of people are stretching before they go and work out. When we stretch a muscle, the muscle loses its ability to contract and contract on demand properly. You can think about the muscle spindles in the muscle fibers. The muscle spindles are like a coiled up slinky. When you bring that slinky out of the box, it's all fresh and coiled, just like a muscle spindle. But if you take that slinky and stretch it out, what's going to happen when you let go? It is not going to recoil back. And so what we want to do is actually improve that slinky's or that muscle spindle's ability to contract and contract on demand. So a lot of people are always asking me, well, what should you do instead? Well, I'm going to come to that at the end of this video and give you at least one simple exercise that you can do that's going to revolutionize your fitness regime in a huge and remarkable way. So here's 7 of the worst things that you can possibly do before you go and do your exercise, whether it's working out, lifting weights, playing sports, going for a run, going for a hike. The top of the list, and I see this all the time, is like trying to touch your toes. This does absolutely nothing for you. Biomechanically, you're actually opening yourself up to becoming more vulnerable to injury. What really is going on here, by the way, is that if you can't touch your toes, it's not because your lower back is tight per se and your hamstrings are tight. What's really going on is that your quads have an inability to contract properly and your core muscles are also not contracting properly. By you trying to do this, all you're doing is causing more instability, and you're not really addressing the problem, which is weakness in your core. So you definitely want to get that working. Another really crazy thing I see, and this is probably one of the worst things because I've experienced this myself since as long as I can remember. I love working out with weights. I don't do a lot of it these days, but I still do work out a lot with weights. And thankfully, I don't have any more injuries. But for years and years and years, when I say years, I'm talking like 25 years, I would get into a really good workout program and I would always end up with pain in my shoulders. And so counterintuitively thinking like, oh, stretching is going to, help that pain go away, is I would do all of these shoulder stretches. So this is the second one on my list, is trying to stretch the whole shoulder girdle and all of these muscles. Again, we want those muscles to actually contract properly so that they stabilize the shoulder joint. When you do all of these kind of poses here, and bring your hand up to a wall, all you're doing is actually causing more instability in the shoulder joint. And for me personally, I would get instability in my shoulder joint because a lot of my muscles in my shoulders were not contracting properly. I would go and try and stretch them out. It would make the problem worse, and then I would have to rest for 2 to 4 weeks. And then I'd come back to the gym all pumped up and excited because I was going to go work out. And then I would rinse, cycle, and then repeat the exact same blunders, and that went on for really 25 years. That's probably the second one. The third one, and we see this a lot too, is these kind of like seated forward folds. Again, the same kind of idea that when we're standing, we can't reach our toes, we can't touch our toes because these muscles, the quads, the rectus femoris, your hip flexors, your trunk flexors, the rectus abdominis, the oblique muscles just are not able to shorten properly. So we want to be able to start improving those muscles' ability to contract and contract on demand. But the other reason why this is just so bad is because of what's happening in the lumbar spine. We're actually starting to reverse that lordotic curve, which sometimes isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you keep repeating it over and over, leaving these muscles shutting down so they're not able to support the joints of the vertebrae properly. So we definitely don't do that. You're going to leave yourself more unstable and more vulnerable and open to injuries. The next one that we're going to see, we see a lot, this actually makes me a little crazy, is the stretching of the quads. So people grab their feet, especially before running. Oh my God, worst thing to do. And they grab their foot and try and pull the heel of their foot towards their glute muscle. Again, you're overstretching the quads. This is not a good thing. You actually need your quads activated before you go for a run. So that's definitely a big no-no. The other problem here is that you're actually forcing the hamstring to shorten beyond what it's capable of doing. So if you kind of look at me for a second here, this is my range of motion. This is as far as my hamstring can contract properly. Doing this kind of exercise, by the way, is actually a really great idea, because now you're starting to try to get that hamstring to shorten, and you're doing it dynamically. As soon as you grab the foot and bring the foot to your glute muscle, you've now bypassed the brain to muscle connection, you've overpassed it, and you've decreased your proprioception, that is your brain's awareness of where the muscle is in space, and that muscle no longer is supporting the joints of the knees. One of the biggest problems you hear from runners especially, and even bodybuilders who do this, is that their knees start to give out. Well, why are their knees giving out? Because the muscles are not supporting the joints properly. So that's the next one. Probably one of the other ones, the fifth one, is stretching the hamstring. So you see people doing this a lot, trying to force, again, the hamstring to open up. That's not what you want to be doing. What you actually want to be doing is activating, again, the quads here. So you want to get those quads really strong and activated. Another one that we see here is hugging the knees into the chest. Again, if you look at, this is my natural range of motion. This, by the way, is a great exercise. This is a wonderful way to start waking up the hip flexors. You do that 6 seconds, 6 times. But if I grab my knee and pull my knee into my chest, and I can get pretty close, again, you're bypassing that connection the brain has to those muscles, and the muscles will shut down, meaning that they will lose their ability to contract and contract on demand. And that ability to contract and contract on demand is what your body's natural process is to stabilize joints. And when you're doing your different range of motions as you're running or playing volleyball, that was probably a really bad jump, playing golf, you need those muscles to be able to shorten properly. One of the absolute worst poses that you can do, and I pray to God that you guys stop doing this today, never do it again, is a pose that we often see, especially in yoga, called Pigeon pose or Raja Kapotanasana. And sometimes it's also referred to as like a runner's stretch. So usually what happens is you bring your foot up and you bring your knee down, and then you bring your chest down to the floor and your hips down. Any kind of hip opener is the worst thing you can do. But Yogi Aaron, why is that? Well, think about what you're stretching when you're doing these hip openers. You're stretching a lot of muscles. There are a ton of muscles that are actually attached to the greater truncanter, the hips. And one of the major ones is the glutes. You actually can see there we have glute max, glute med, and glute min. So all of these glute muscles are starting to get stretched. Well, your glute muscles are the shock absorbers of your body. And you think about a car that has shock absorbers. What happens when those shock absorbers stop working? The axle breaks. Well, what is the axle in your body? Your lower back, your hips, your knees. So many people end up having pain in their hips, debilitating pain. And either two things happen. One, they start getting stretched more, going for massages, which doesn't really help the problem because the problem is sourced in the muscles losing their ability to contract properly and stabilize the joints of the hips. So please stop doing pigeon pose. I said I was going to give you one pose, one magic pose, the one magic pose to rule them all. Now, of course, there's many other things that you can be doing, but if you only had like a minute, and sometimes some of us do, we're constantly on the go. I'm a yogi on the go, and I'm always thinking about like how much time I've got to do things. Sometimes I come running into my CrossFit class late, and I don't really have a lot of time to obviously then do a lot of quote unquote muscle activation exercises or warm-ups. So this is the one pose that I always will do no matter what is coming up, and it's one of my favorites. And if you know me well, it's going to be, yes, that's correct, Superman pose. And so what it looks like is you just come onto your belly here and you bring your arms out to the sides. And then what you're going to do here is just lift the legs and lift the chest up. Now, a couple of things are happening here, but one, you're engaging all of your back muscles, and you're also engaging your glutes, which is what you want. You want those shock absorbers to be strong. You want the suspension system of the hips to be strong. The magic number here is 6 seconds and doing it 6 times, okay? So come on down, and let's actually do it now. You're gonna lift up. You're actually even engaging a little bit of hamstring too, not a lot. If you want a little bit more hamstring, you can bend the knees, okay? But for now, keep the legs straight because we're really wanting to target the lower back muscles. Come on down. And then come on up. And then bring the arms out. Now, if you want to go for broke here, you can bring the arms forward. Now lift everything up, lift it up, lift it up, lift it up. And then come on down. Oh my goodness. If you do this pose every day, I promise you, your workouts are going to change in a dramatic way, and you're going to feel not only more stronger, but also more stable. And stability shows up as not having, hopefully, so many injuries or being in pain. Let's do it again. Come on up. Lift up. Bring the arms forward. And lift up the chest. Now drive the thumbs up. This is going to get into your trapezius muscles. So we're in glutes, lower back, and traps. And then come on down. Delicious. Come on up. Bring the arms forward. Now lift up. Lift up. Lift up the legs. Lower the chest a little bit. Lift the legs up higher, and then lift the arms, and then come on down. Oh my goodness. And one more time. Come on up. Bring the arms forward. Lift up. Lift up. Lift up. And come on down. I hope that was useful for you guys. Please stop stretching before your workout. That's really the message here. Start doing muscle activations. Improve your muscular system's ability to contract and contract on demand. How you do that is just what we just did in Shalabhasana. Doing an isometric pose, doing it 6 seconds, and holding it for 6 seconds and doing it 6 times. You guys, happy practicing. Stay pain-free so that you can manifest and live your life purpose. See you next time.